All right, everybody. Thank you so much and for joining today. We appreciate your time today and for being here live with us. We've got a great webinar brought to you by Talent Board, which is my organization, and featuring Sense, who is going to be talking about 8 ways to speed hiring with text messaging and chatbots. Already, thank you for your first question. We'll definitely get to that as we proceed with this webinar. So what I want to do first is just talk about some housekeeping of pretty standard webinar fare that we are recording this session, and we'll make it available to you after tomorrow. But again, we're glad you're here live with us today. Feel free to ask questions anytime, either through the Q&A part of the Zoom dashboard or even the chat function, which you've already done there. And that works just fine for us. And we'll keep it monitored. And if it's a timely question, we'll definitely take it. And thanks for already asking as well. So we definitely appreciate that. And again, we'll send you the recording tomorrow after this webinar is done. But thanks again for being here live. I want to introduce our presenters today. My name is Kevin Grossman, president of Talent Board, and I want to welcome Wendy Lu, who's the head of product marketing at Sense, and Justine Li, who's the product lead at Sense. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
How
Thanks
are
so much
you?
for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining today. And so we've got a great informative webinar ahead. And I think first and foremost, Wendy, you're going to talk a little bit about Sense first.
Yeah, so just a quick overview of the agenda. We'll cover a little bit about what's happening in the market and why this topic is so near and dear to our heart in terms of accelerating hiring and providing a better candidate experience. We'll talk about some of the unique ways that you can leverage chatbot as well as text messaging and how that comes to life and some of the ways that have really come a long way in just the development of technology there. We'll also talk about a customer story and how this actually comes to life in real ROI numbers and dollars. And then we'll, obviously wrap up with Q&A as well. But to start off, just for those who aren't familiar with Sense, Sense offers a full suite of automation and communication tools to help you really engage and retain your talent throughout the entire life cycle. We do directly integrate with all major ATSs to bring your candidate and job information and really leverage that to personalize your communication at scale. We power talent engagement at over 800 companies to over 100 million candidates and employees, and we're used every day by over 40,000 recruiters to help drive more than 3 million hires a year. So that's a little bit about us.
Just a little tiny bit of coverage, right, and distribution. That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
All right, so we'll get started here and just talking about what's really happening in today's talent market. And we wanted to take this time and opportunity as companies are really gearing up for a new year of recruiting to really set the stage of what's happening in the talent market, both from an employer's view, but also from the candidate's perspective as well. So let's talk about some of the indicators that we're seeing. So even with a lot of the economic uncertainty and news of layoffs, companies that are continuing to hire say that the talent market is still really competitive. PwC surveyed leading business executives earlier this year, and 77% of respondents said that hiring and retaining the talent is the most critical factor to achieving the business targets. And more recently, Interviewing.io estimated that companies have eliminated 50% of their recruiters and HR staffers when conducting layoffs this year. So it's really been a huge kind of story of high jobs still in the market. The October US jobs report indicated that there was still another 261,000 jobs that were added in October, which still indicates a really strong and resilient job market. But at the same time, you have a diminishing and limited, very lean recruiting workforce. So I think that there's a lot of stories behind, how can we do more with less? How do we maintain a really competitive standpoint when it comes to engaging and really retaining our talent while also being able to engage with them at scale?
It is a place, Wendy and Justine, that we've never been before in the world. It continues to be just the constant change, number one, since the pandemic, but just a place economically with still pretty much a strong hiring market, as you outlined. And yes, teams, especially across tech sectors, across industries, are going to be leaner for sure going into next year. But it is, again, it is just, it is, nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know where this is going. And it's, but it's fascinating to actually look at, and on some levels too, the fact that there's still going to be some very critical hiring that has to continue to happen throughout going into this next year. And one of the things, just real quick, I wanted to add to this is we just completed our at the end of every year, we do a recruiting focus survey, just a really short, brief survey to our Candy community. And after about 200 responses that we got, the #1 recruiting focus that they said for next year is going to be onboarding, because of the struggle with pre-boarding to onboarding and nurturing and engagement and communication. That's one of the areas that was kind of new to see that going into next year. But across the candidate journey, I mean, communication is definitely critical and key, and something that companies are going to need to continue to leverage the right technologies, especially with any hiring volume and scale.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see this coming to life in a couple different ways, right? Where some companies are batching their new hires. And so you have this, it could be as long as 1 month or 2 months between when they are, getting their offer versus when they actually start. And during that 2 months, realistically, candidates could be looking for other positions. And it's a really critical time in that period to continue to engage with them, continue to make them excited, and really make them feel like they're a part of the team already. And I think on the other hand, it's also that, with a lot of these onboarding periods, like you have a leaner team that you have to work on. And so you really have to lean into that automation so that you're continuing to handle them and provide for them throughout that process, while not taking too much away from your team.
Oh, exactly. Right.
So I think the major question that we're facing here is, how do you maintain that top level candidate experience with less resources? And the answer to that comes to life across these core themes across speed, efficiency, and engagement. We had actually conducted a time study a while back with hundreds of recruiters and found that their time is really focused on these 4 major buckets. So sourcing, identifying requirements, finding candidates, screening them, scheduling and interviewing, and then extending offers and getting candidates over that finish line. As we talk about the importance of efficiency with a leaner recruiting resources, you can see that there's so much opportunity for us to really automate a lot of the manual processes and a lot of the administrative work that lies under each and every single one of these buckets. And with automation, with technology, you can really find your recruiters shifting their time into areas and in processes where their time can be the most impactful and most valuable from a candidate experience perspective.
Especially in still a continuing competitive candidate market, and with still more jobs than candidates available. I mean, even with the layoffs that have been occurring, it's still a strong hiring market, and it is astonishing to me, Wendy and Justine, that of the percentage of manual work that recruiters still are doing on a regular basis, even with maybe regardless of what their tech stack looks like. And some of you might, chime in. We're actually going to ask you a poll question later about how much manual work you're still doing as it comes to that. But it's just astonishing to me with the level of technology that is available to us all, of how much manual work that you're all still doing.
Yeah. And I think part of that, and we'll cover some of the quick wins that you can do, but I think it really comes back to identifying what are the biggest areas of opportunity for your individual teams, and then being able to identify the quick wins and the ones that are going to make the most impact across your organization.
Exactly.
So we've talked a little bit about the impact of efficiency, and I also wanted to talk about the importance of speed. So Sense actually recently surveyed over 1,000 job seekers who are actively looking for new opportunities. And one of the things that we found was that candidates have really wanted recruiters to respond faster and more frequently. And it's clear that companies have kind of struggled with candidate communication Those companies are at a disadvantage when it comes to this competitive talent market. As candidates, will actually remove themselves from consideration if it takes too long for recruiters to respond back to them. So it's like this double whammy of like, if you're not fast enough, you're not going to get the candidates through the funnel, and they have other opportunities to look at other companies. And on the other side, it can also be a huge deterrent. Like they can actually pull out of the application process completely if they feel like you're not being responsive. So I think that's a huge thing. And I also want to make a special mention to transparency here when it comes to getting more information from the recruiters on a more timely basis, and being able to have some of that information up front. I think that's going to be a more and more critical line as people just don't want to waste their time, and they want to know exactly who they're talking to, who they're engaging with. And to be able to, again, do that at scale is a tough problem to solve without automation, without technology. So we're really excited to kind of dig into both of these themes, and as well as the ultimate candidate engagement and the candidate experience, and leveraging different technology to help you achieve all three.
Exactly.
All right, so I think this is, yeah, Kevin.
No, we're just going to say we have a poll question for you all. So let me cue this poll question up. And the question is, are you currently using a chatbot in your recruiting process? So if you can give us a quick second and answer the poll question, you should see it on the screen now. The answers are either yes, no, or we're thinking about it, which is probably one of the reasons why you're here as well. So that's good, unless you already have one, or et cetera. So let us know again in the chat, sorry, in the poll question, yes, no, or we're thinking about it. Are you currently using a chatbot in your recruiting process? And we'll go another 20, 30 seconds. So give us a answer if you haven't done it yet, and let us know. And then we will share the results and see what we see. Anybody else? Okay, there's another one. All right.
I feel like you should be an auctioneer, just going once, going
I know.
twice.
Yeah. Usually, getting over my cold has slowed me down, but I can go fast when we need to. All right, we're going to go ahead and share the results now. So you should see the percentages on the screen, everybody, and it looks like we've got about a third, a little under a third, that said that they do. So that's good, and then another 40% that says that they don't. But then another third that says that they're thinking about it. So that is good news. And that's, again, probably one of the reasons why you're here. Wendy, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's actually pretty on spot with some of the research that we've done too. Sure. But it's great to see that the number of like people who are using chatbots as well as thinking about it, holds the majority. So I'm really, excited about that movement there. Got it.
All right. Well, let me stop sharing that. And so one of the things that I'll just comment on briefly, and then Wendy, if you want to add to it too, we did a joint research project together earlier this year, and it was focused on chatbots and texting and the power of those recruiting technologies, especially to help in outbound and inbound communications, which is very critical. It's always a differentiator in our benchmark research that we conduct every year at Talent Board. And timely communications is what all candidates want. They want the job first and foremost. That's the reality, but most aren't going to get the job, unfortunately, for every job search they're interested in. So the next thing that they want is they want to be communicated with. They want to be engaged throughout the process and be given closure. And so one of the things that we found is that definitely what's driving some of the highest success are conversational AI and basic chatbots when it comes to outbound and inbound communications. And then one of the things that we have seen in our benchmark research the past few years, for that matter, is that we've definitely seen an increase in companies implementing chatbots, whether that's part of a suite or a best of breed solution or standalone. That's definitely being leveraged more. And the companies in our research that have the highest rated candidate experiences are using the chatbots more frequently to answer candidate questions. And it's nearly 30% more than all the other companies combined in our research. So that's a big difference right there. And I can tell you, always a differentiator every year in our research is to be able to have timely communications. And that's where technology can definitely be your friend. You as the employers out there, you control the dials of what you're saying to candidates, when you're saying it, with what frequency, especially with the tech stacks that you have or that you need to have at the end of the day. So but the highest rated companies are doing this quite regularly.
Yeah, and I think that, what I'm excited about is that we're just now scratching the surface
Right.
when it comes to specifically like leveraging chatbots and conversational AI and just how far they've come. I think, the next evolution of chatbots will really kind of move away from these like simple kind of structures and be able to like weave in and out of conversations and really act as that digital recruiter that is, so powerful to help engage those candidates that are still just kind of on the warm side, and allow your recruiters to focus their time on the hot candidates, the ones that need the most attention, just kind of reallocate their time most efficiently.
Absolutely.
So I'm actually excited to talk about some of the maybe some not maybe some that are no brainers in terms of use cases of how you can use chatbots to accelerate hiring, but also talk about some quick wins and maybe some understated ones across both chatbots and as well as texting. So the first use case here is capturing candidate information directly from your website and answering FAQs without recruiter lift. So again, coming back to that whole idea of being able to answer questions, being able to answer, what kind of information they need, what kind of benefits you offer, and being able to do that up front. And like, why is this important? We had pulled the stat here that said that the application view to applicant rate had dropped from 7% in 2020 to 3% in 2021. And what this really means is that more candidates are seeing more job applications, but they're actually applying to less. And I think one of the things that I always challenge our customers and our prospects to is, really take a look at your application process and really see how easy is it for a candidate to click through and just be able to kind of get engaged in your application process. What we found is that it's really a lot of companies don't take advantage of just capturing the candidate information up front and making it as easy as possible to capture that information. Because at the end of the day, like having that information then unlocks your ability to nurture them and continue to engage with them. I kind of relate this to like my Amazon shopping cart where I'll put something in, but it probably will take me a long time to figure out whether I actually need this purchase. It's a new skill that I'm trying to hone in. Just trying to reduce buyer's remorse. But that's kind of the typical behavior is just we have so much going on that we have like bursts of moments where we're focused and we're doing things. So being able to just easily capture their information, what's your name, what's your email, that's all you really need. And then by leveraging a chatbot to do that, all the other stuff can come later.
So Wendy, you've picked a tough time to test yourself with the shopping cart. That's for sure, right?
Black Friday,
especially this
my
time
credit
of the
cards
year.
are
Exactly.
I need to freeze them somewhere else. But coming to this, I mean, like again, it just comes back to like that consumerization that we're seeing in not only recruiting but across all industries as well. Like there's like e-commerce has really done a lot in terms of like pushing expectations and reaching new like raising the bar across how we experience companies and how we engage with them. But I think there's a lot to learn in terms of like the ways that they're just quickly capturing our interest and being able to leverage that going forward. So one of the ways that you can do that is through website chatbots. You can capture, actually, we've seen this in our customers as well, but they've been actually able to capture 4 times the talent that's actually visiting their career site. So instead of waiting until all the way through them actually submitting an application for a specific job, you can just capture their information up front and then just continue to nurture them. You can also leverage this like in the same flow to screen them and to see what kind of qualifications they might have. We've seen this decrease time to apply for job listings by up to 50%. That's a huge impact that you can have just by one chatbot here. And just coming back to FAQs and how we talked about transparency and at the same time reducing a lot of that lift from your recruiters, FAQ bots are a really great way of doing that, and being able to answer frequently asked questions such as, what do I need for the interview? Where is your office located? And you can pre-program all of this. You can send this out on your website. You can have this as something that you send to candidates. It's just a really easy way for you to be able to provide that information at scale. So the second use case here is making it as easy as possible to submit an application. These are probably two of my best and favorite ways of leveraging chatbots, just because of the way that we're interacting with technology and communication channels these days. But I would also love to say that I feel like as a marketer, you're always looking for additional real estate. Like, where else can I capture my market's attention? And I think that QR code and link-based bots have really picked up a lot in terms of how many companies and how many organizations have leveraged this for job hiring. So you can meet candidates in channels that they want to engage with you. You can provide a really quick call to action that's engaging. You could put QR codes on anything and everything. We had a customer who put their QR code on yard signs outside of their company and just like put them right out there. And it's just gaining traction, and like people have become so accustomed to seeing QR codes on menus and at restaurants. So I think it's a really easy and low lift way for you to be able to garner that interest.
It's funny, they're not, QR codes aren't new at all, but they seem to have had are having a renaissance right now. I know that we're using them a lot just on the marketing side to promote research and a bunch of other things too. So it's a great idea, especially for getting job candidates to kind of check out what might be available and potentially apply. So yeah.
I mean, especially if you're working in a like in a hospitality or in a retail space, like using your storefronts is an easy way to turn people who are your original like customers into your employees as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And again, another way is text to apply as well. You probably see a lot of this, especially on roads these days. But the reality is that a lot of people, professionals will, that's the wrong word. There are a lot of people who don't sit in front of a computer all day, which I would argue is probably better for their backs. But for those people, and like I'm even on my phones every day, there's so much email that's coming through. Just being able to provide another avenue for them to quickly respond and see like what kind of jobs you're hiring for. Text to apply is a really quick and easy way for you to be able to capture more applications as well.
And text deliverability is much higher these days than email deliverability. Emails are getting trapped a lot more. I mean, just to your point, even if you do have an email you're using for job search, you're not really, unless you're actively searching, you're not checking that email a lot, and there's spam filters and the list goes on. So we've seen in our data too, that the ability to receive text to apply notifications definitely is an engaging experience for candidates and is more positive for them versus email. So
definitely. Also, another way that chatbots can help making this application process easier is reducing friction throughout the entire process. You can have chatbots these days that can actually facilitate file uploads, do reminders to candidates who may have like abandoned their chat for a while, or just providing more contextual answers based on the conversation that the candidate has had. These are just some of the many ways that you can reduce that friction, have it really seamless, get it as close to like a one-click type of process. Then going back and forth between email and text and email and text, it's not a great experience. So being able to collect all that information in one fell swoop really helps accelerate your hiring and reduces the friction for the candidate as well. All right, moving on to use case 3. So activating consistent and fast screening techniques, all with tracking activity in one place. So one of the ways, and one of the most effective ways that we see chatbots being used is screening. So you can fill your recruiters' calendars with qualified, vetted candidates. And I think even, everybody can attest to the fact that there are some bar none questions that you have to ask for every candidate, whether it's their, like their citizenship status, or whether it's, whether they can lift 50 pounds or whatever it might be specific to the job roles. And you can actually create chatbot flows that will create screening criteria based on the role that you're looking for. So you can really specialize, like if you're hiring for both front of house and back of house roles, you can have those screening questions be custom built for that role, and be able to only have your recruiters focus on the ones that pass that entire screening criteria.
That's really important because that plays into how much time that we're having to invest. I mean, every candidate that applies, should be given the acknowledgement and the closure, no matter how qualified they are. But the fact of the matter is, you and your recruiting teams, you want to focus only on those that are going to be screened and interviewed and potentially in the running for whatever that job is, whether it's a job, a salesperson in a store, to or for professional technical in the corporate office, whatever that role is, you want to be able to do that. So having to be able to focus more on those that you are going to be screening in an automated, especially for any volume of hiring that many mid-sized to global enterprises are doing, you definitely want to have that ability to auto screen.
Yeah. And I think going back to the fact that transparency has become so important, I think just being able to say, hey, like, unfortunately, you weren't qualified for this position in particular. And I'll kind of show you another use case in a couple minutes here, but you can redirect them to other jobs that they might be qualified for. And, handling that rejection in a way that's actually promoting and providing a great candidate experience that will, leave your company in a better position overall. This is, again, a really, really effective way to cut down so much of your time that your recruiters are spending just doing manual screening. This is one of my quick and dirty wins. So if you want anything and anything that's probably going to save you a really mountain loads of time while having the lowest lift for your recruiters, leveraging TwoWay interview scheduling. It's kind of mind-numbing to think about how much time this can save you. But think about the times that you're spending emailing back and forth. What's your availability? Oh, I'm not available that day. It's just so much mind-numbing back and forth, and it clogs up your inbox and clogs up your candidate's inbox as well. So this is a great way where you can automate that scheduling. It can be automatically tied and integrated with your recruiters' calendars. So you can have that facilitated. You can have every recruiter have their own calendar. You can also append this at the end of a screening chatbot. So you can see how you can screen a candidate. If they pass the criteria, you can say, hey, we'd love to schedule time with you. That can be a round robin, or it can be first available, taking them from submitting an application to getting their interviews scheduled all in the same session. I think this is a huge, huge win. Yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah, it is. And it's always been a perennial headache for recruiting teams. The constant back and forth between them, the candidates, the hiring managers, it is just it's a headache, big time headache. So to be able to better automate the scheduling process, it's a huge win.
Yeah, and even with that reducing no-show piece, right? Having automated reminders to both the recruiters and the candidates, saying, hey, you have an interview scheduled tomorrow. If they can't make it, that's totally great. It happens, right? So, but just being able to have them automatically select a new time, and for the recruiters to now have that time available to them instead of, showing up to the interview and not having the candidate there. And the last one I'll touch on for chatbot before handing it over is engaging silver medalists and suggesting other relevant roles. So as I talked about earlier, when we think about screening and screening in candidates, the reality is that only a handful of them or a certain percentage of them will actually be qualified for the role that you're looking for. A really easy way for you to redirect them is to actually leverage job matching. So it screens against the criteria that are already in the jobs that you have in your system, and providing better recommendations that they might be qualified for. So that's within the screening flow, but you can also have this as nurturing silver medalists. So let's say, for example, you had a candidate, they were amazing, they were just shy of getting the job. What do you do with that candidate? You've invested so much time and energy and resources in obtaining this really great candidate. And then because they weren't right for that one specific role, you're just, leaving them and throwing them back into the pool. By doing this and by having like an automated job matching capability, you can actually redivert them and you can bypass all that time that you've already spent, qualifying them and vetting them, and just speed track them, which is a great experience for the candidate as well. So yeah, as you can see, this is an example where you can see just like in the chatbot flow, you can have job matching in there. You can create a personalized job search, reduce their need to like search through and sift through your candidate career site, especially if you have a lot of jobs that are available. Just being able to like kind of search and filter based on location, years of experience, whatever it might be. You can really surface those relevant opportunities within their existing chat session. All right, cool. I will pass it over to Justine to talk about text messaging use cases.
Cool. Thanks, Wendy. So in the same candidate survey Wendy had mentioned earlier, we asked candidates to indicate their preferred method of communication with recruiters, and texting was ranked #1. Texting has come a long way in its effectiveness as a recruiting tool. And by this measure alone, we can infer that we're already providing a better candidate experience by contacting them in the way that you prefer. We'll also cover some unique use cases and value texting that it can bring to accelerate hiring and make your recruiters more efficient, all while not sacrificing the candidate experience. So this next use case, sending broadcast messages and leveraging templates. With providers that offer recruiting specific texting solutions, you can send messages to multiple candidates at the same time. This saves recruiters countless minutes and hours, as they're probably already copying and pasting their own templates into individual texts. As a buyer's guide, look for providers that offer something like a Chrome extension and integration with your ATS, so your recruiters can easily grab numbers from your ATS and add them to a mass text. From there, you can select an appropriate template to send to a large group. Sending mass text to a large recipient group can be tricky due to carrier filtering, but with something like our template management feature, you can pre-populate approved templates for your entire agency to ensure a standard quality of content.
And one thing I'll just chime in here, just from like a customer story perspective, I think recruiters can be a little bit resistant to change, especially if they have a process. They're like, I have my to-do list. I know what I'm doing every day, day in, day out. And we had a client whose recruiters were really just allergic to this idea of like leveraging texting and having automated text go out on their behalf. They wanted control. They wanted, to be able to do all those things. But what we found out in reality was that they were copying and pasting a template that they had saved in their notes and just individually were texting candidates like as a first day reminder, like, hey, tomorrow's your first day at this company. And when we introduced our solution to them, again, at first there was a little bit of hesitancy, but after they were actually able to use it, they gained so many minutes back and hours back of their Sunday nights, just sending all those texts individually. So I think that's a huge way where you're providing a better recruiter experience and you're providing a better candidate experience by providing that information up front as well. And the other thing that I'll mention about like our templates manager in particular, especially as you think about optimizing text, I think the analytics portion of that is so important, being able to track the effectiveness of different templates that you're using. So being able to just, being able to test and see what messages are working, what aren't working, I think is really important to just continue to improve on your candidate experience.
And anybody who's carrying still any significant load of job requisitions that open at any given time, you definitely want to be able to leverage this and not spend hours on a Sunday queuing those up when you can actually have them all scheduled. And there's still, again, the strong hiring that's happening. There's recruiters that are carrying 30, 40, even 50 plus recs, so that's a lot. So
cool. So the next use case is tapping into channels where your candidates are, including WhatsApp. Text messaging has become the primary communication method for most people today. I mean, everyone has their phones on them all the time. It's the most convenient way for candidates to communicate with recruiters. And recruiters can reach candidates when they're on assignment or just on the go. While candidates in the US primarily use SMS for texting, WhatsApp is the preferred messaging platform for candidates globally. And why is this? SMS can be very costly. Cross-platform challenges such as image quality is a concern. And for example, if you're sending from an iPhone to an Android, that image quality can be impacted. Long texts can be broken up and sent out of order, especially across devices or with specific carriers like Sprint. 26, and those are really not problems that you see or will have on WhatsApp. And another big difference is that you can receive read receipts on WhatsApp. 26% of the world's population uses WhatsApp, and 29% of the world's working population uses WhatsApp. And a bit of a shameless plug here, but since launched its WhatsApp integration in October, our product enables you to reach candidates where they already are communicating. So we enabled messaging on both SMS and WhatsApp channels, and both are accessible on web, Chrome extension, and mobile, so both iOS and Android. Our 8th use case, building continuous relationships using conversation context. So at Sense, our core thesis is that relationships are continuous. Our main focus is helping recruiters build a cohesive narrative with their candidates that transitions seamlessly between powerful custom automation and personal touch points. The challenge is to do this in a way that doesn't erode the quality of the candidate experience, and that's where conversation context comes in. This brings relevant information about the candidate from all across your automated communications and ATS together in one place where recruiters need to see it, which is usually within their messaging thread. You can see when a meeting has been scheduled, whether a teammate has messaged a candidate, and you can even read those other conversations happening if the feature is fully enabled for your agency.
And I'll, just a quick comment on this, that this chatbots, and especially conversational AI, has definitely helped to fill a void in candidate communication that had existed for the longest time, because again, for any volume of candidates that companies are moving through the pipelines, et cetera, that there just can't touch every single individual, even with a human, even if you wanted to, at the point of application. So the ability, what we see in our data is that candidates, there's a more positive sentiment around the fact that they're being engaged earlier on and throughout. And if that's automation, we all want to talk to a human, but at the end of the day, it still pays dividends for sure.
Definitely. Excuse me. Okay, so I'll wrap up here, but again, welcome any questions through either the chat or the Q&A. But I just wanted to share a quick story here about how one of our customers was actually able to leverage some of this technology to exceed their hiring goals. And Compasses is one of our clients. They have over 6,000 or nearly 6,000 employees across 200 locations in 30 states. And they have and continue to have ambitious recruiting goals that require speed and efficiency. And I think we can all only imagine what the healthcare recruiting space has been like in the past couple of years in terms of like finding the right talent, being able to be highly competitive in terms of that candidate's experience and being able to hire them quickly and efficiently to fill their roles. But as engaging the right talent at scale became increasingly challenging, they turned to Sense to help them accelerate their hiring efforts. And by using automation, their hiring team saves 18 to 20 hours each week while still engaging more than 500 candidates each month. They've actually been able to shorten their time to hire from a week to a day and a half. And this, that's astonishing. It results in, and I think it also pays off in terms of them being able to hire top talent faster, since they're able to quickly extend offers after interviewing a great candidate. So a really great example of just how different pieces of automation and personalization and being able to leverage these different types of engagement, tools really helps, bring a better candidate experience, but also helps you hire fast and hire efficiently.
It's huge, huge. So thank you both very much for that informative session. If you've got questions, folks, go ahead and send them our way, either in the chat function or the Q&A. A question that I have, Wendy, for you is that for those companies that were on today that had said earlier on in the poll question that we're thinking about it when it comes to a chatbot, what are the things, because again, there was a lot of great information, a lot of value that could help them in the recruiting process, but where do I start? And what are some of the questions I should be asking the providers, right, that offer this kind of solution out of the gate, just so I can get my head around this right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think first things first is just audit and evaluate your process, and really just understand what your journey looks like for both the candidate as well as the recruiter. I think that's going to be where you're going to find the most amount of insights in terms of the areas of your recruiting funnel that are driving the most inefficiencies and has the biggest opportunity for you to make an impact. Because the reality is that chatbots, there's so many different use cases, but you could start with one, and you could start with a quick win. You could start with one area that you can see quick returns on, and then you can grow your use cases from there. So in terms of, evaluation criteria, I would definitely recommend making sure that, they offer more than, a singular chatbot, that it's not just kind of a one and done, because I think that causes more disruption. You'll have multiple, point solutions that add up and cause more inefficiencies, more question marks for your recruiting team as well. The other thing that I will say, which is maybe a little bit controversial, is to ask your provider what data they're leveraging to audit and to build their models and train their models.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big reasons I say that is because there are a lot of chatbots out there that aren't recruiting specific, and because they aren't, a lot of the natural language that you expect is actually not in context with what the recruiter or what the candidate's actually expecting that conversation. So really being able to audit their AI, seeing what kind of the data they're training their models on, I think is really critical for you to make sure that your chatbots are going to be successful. Yeah, I think those are the big things I would cover in that criteria, as well as the use cases and evaluation as well.
And if there's an opportunity to maybe, talk to some of the current customers too, right? To be able to get an understanding of how it's playing out for them, and the benefits that they've seen and what their measures of success are. There's a myth that chatbots, conversational AI, actually can sour candidate experience. And so how would you address that?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. First, I think that it's important for your chatbot to be able to collect feedback at the end of every conversation. Sense does that after every one of our conversations. And we've actually seen that most, if not all of our customers have a candidate satisfaction rating of 4.5 out of 5 or above.
That's great.
So it's right off the bat dispelling that idea that candidates don't like chatbots. I think that the important thing is that they know what to expect in that chatbot conversation,
right?
And that you're setting that expectation. Hey, like this is going to take 4 minutes. This is going to take 2 minutes, or whatever that flow would look like. But I think it's also, I think a lot of companies will position themselves as like, yeah, our chatbots will take over all your recruiters and you'll never need, like, that's just not the case.
No.
There's nothing that can replace the human element and just being able to talk to an actual
Sure.
person. I think the more important way to think about it is that your chatbots add a layer of value that removes a lot of the administrative work for your recruiters so that they can handle the more the recruiters can handle the more value additive, the human elements of connection and building those relationships. And your chatbots can handle all the dirty grudge work that no one wants to really do. Yeah, but I think that providing a better candidate experience is all about setting that expectation and being able to leverage it in a way that provides them information and provides them value and provides them speed too.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, and I think this goes back to the whole point about the data modeling and how the learning algorithms are developed, and that they are also, you know, an organization that understands and knows the recruiting and hiring space too, because, you know, there is nothing more frustrating than to not talk to a human and feel like you're not getting anywhere with a FAQ or a chat bot or whatever it is. But that's also where the power of conversational AI comes in too, right? Because it's not just binary yes and no general questions, which can be helpful. But if I've already had millions and millions of interactions, and the AI is more, can answer kind of out of the box questions, right? And then provide a sensible response to the candidates before they get a chance to talk to the human. That is a big win. And in our data, it does show that, again, when there is communication and engagement, even with the chatbot, it's definitely a positive sentiment skew because they are getting questions answered at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I will say this as like a not quite humanitarian approach to this, but there is this element of like, in order for chatbots to succeed and in order for them to really be effective, like in the long term, we need that data, and companies needs to they need to adopt it, and they need to start testing it and be willing to train or train their models, because at the end of the day, it is, you know, like it's with more data that we will be able to process more and be able to have that more close to the natural language processing and understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's really important too. And definitely, again, something you want to ask about when you're talking to providers like Sense and others too, when you're in the market. I don't think that there are any other questions, Wendy and Justine. So
it looks like there was one question from
oh, at the beginning, you mean about the integration?
No, in our chat, I just got one. It says, is data from text messages processing by AI or chatbot only? Justine?
No, so the data, I think you mean whether the incoming messages are processed in any way, and no, they are not.
Yeah. But I think the one thing, do we want to talk about like, what's it called? Oh man, I'm blanking out on the feature name. But it's smart suggestions.
Yeah, we don't have smart suggestions today, but that is something that we're looking to incorporate into our roadmap.
You mean like a recommendation engine is what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically being able to parse out and like digest the conversation context of what's happening in the conversation, and being able to provide quick, you know, recommendations on how to respond.
So that's something that's on your roadmap then?
Yeah,
longer term roadmap. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Sorry, I did not see that question. I had scrolled up and not down, so that was why. All right. Anything else from anybody that are on right now? Since we did have the question, one more thing. Since we did have the question at the beginning about integrating with success factors, talk a little bit more about how well you play with other systems, because, you know, there's a lot of organizations that have multiple recruiting technology systems, ATS, of course, CRM. That they're going to want, the question is, can the data communicate back and forth, and how easily is it integrated, and do I have to upload data separately? I mean, talk just a little bit about integrations.
Yeah, let me scroll up to that slide really quick. But we integrate with most, if not all, the major ATSs. So SAP SuccessFactors, Workday, iSense, Oracle
Sure.
Taleo. And the way that our integrations will vary from integration to integration, that full transparency. But the way that our integration work is that you can pull in candidate information that you have across like your existing, systems of records, whether they're your ATS or your CRM or whether they're a CSV, and we can import that in and then leverage that for communication. And then on the flip side, a lot of the engagement that we have like within our platform can also get written back to your candidate record.
Awesome.
Alternatively, if you want to keep those systems separate, like if you want to engage with your potential job seekers or people who haven't quite made it all the way over to your CRM, you can also do that through our talent relationship management platform, which allows you to kind of collect that information, keep it within our records, and then be able to leverage that for automated communication, and then select when you want to push that to your system of record.
Excellent. Thank you for that, for outlining that. That's great. There is another question that came in about WhatsApp. So has it been a struggle for your global clients to start using WhatsApp, and especially as it relates to security considerations?
Justine, do you have an answer to that?
Let's see. So can you repeat the question?
Has it been
Yeah,
a
so
struggle for your global clients to start using WhatsApp, especially as it relates to security?
Mhm.
No, we haven't had that concern. Not sure if you wanted to maybe expand on the concern around security, but most of our clients so far for WhatsApp have been located in the UK. And yeah, we haven't had any issues so far. For business WhatsApp, there are rules that Meta has for verifying your business, and you kind of go through a registration process with them, and then there are special sort of business specific ways to use WhatsApp, which is really using pre-approved templates. And so yeah, that's just a little bit more information about WhatsApp and who's been using it. But let me know if you have a follow-up question on the security piece.
Is the person who, Kelly, if you're still on, do you have anything that you want to add to that question that you asked specifically? If not, no worries.
Yeah, we can also follow up with her directly if you'd like. Yep.
Sure, no worries. Okay, well, thank you, Justine, very much. Anybody else before we wrap up? Okay. Well, thanks everybody again. And Wendy and Justine, thank you so much. And we appreciate everybody being here today, and have a great rest of the week. And if you are in the States next week, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.